Jeffrey Falberg there on the right, bringing that powerful metal-type V-Star Pokemon, and it'll be Michael Diaz on the left, playing a Lost Zone Toolbox deck. This is another deck, we haven't talked about it too much, in an interesting spot in the metagame currently. Players not exactly sure what the best way to build it is.
Indeed, and Michael bringing something completely new to the table, has a Miraidon EX, has an Oranguru V in there as well, as Zapdos to increase lightning types damage, right? So definitely a different way to approach the deck. It'll be interesting to see how he handles this matchup, which might not be in his top priority list to test against.
Yeah, I have to imagine Lost Zone Box does not love going up against a deck that can take extra turns. And I think we may have our prize cards switched here, so we'll see if we can sort that out, or we have our players on the incorrect spot, but we'll get it all figured out here very soon. Jeffrey Falberg is playing the Dialga, and it will be Michael Diaz playing the Iron Hands with the Lost Zone Box, the Lightning Box, potentially we could call it.
Yeah, it does seem like it's based towards Lightning Pokemon. Now, my issue with Lost Box in this format has always been the fact that it has a really tough time dealing with Charizard. There isn't a solid one prize grass type Pokemon that can really decisively deal with Charizard, so you have to find like ways around it, and I'm not sure I see an answer for that for Michael as well. So I feel like that's the reason why Lost Box didn't really perform at UIC, and I'm not super sold on the deck just yet.
Well, it looks like our judge has given the thumbs up. Our players are getting into this Swiss Round 4 match. And it does appear that our prize card cams were just swapped. So we've got Michael on the left with that Lost Zone deck, kicking things off with an excellent new addition to the format, Buddy Poffin. Lost Zone players may feel like they would miss Battle VIP Pass, but this is a pretty solid replacement, Pablo.
It is definitely a solid replacement in that first turn. But as the game goes on, it can't fetch that Sableye, that Cramorant, so it definitely feels like it has diminishing returns. And that's something why I feel like we saw Cleffa and things like Banette being included in decks, because it gives that Buddy Puffin extra use after that first turn, right? But obviously, getting it first, getting your double Comfey in your Lost Box deck, can't ask for better.
Yeah, and that is exactly what it finds here in this spot, as Michael's getting ready for Hawaii with 3 Comfey on the field. Has a pretty solid opening hand as well with that Radiant Greninja, extremely powerful Pokemon in these opening turns, utilizing concealed cards to discard an energy card, adding 2 more to the hand.
Already holding that Colress as well, so very powerful start for Michael. Potentially triple Comfey turn as well, and that threat of Greninja attacking is something that's probably crossing Jeffrey's mind right now, as there's no Manaphy to protect his Beldums.
Yeah, no Manaphy to protect the Beldums, and normally we see players using the Dialga deck try to go for that Technical Machine Evolution right away, so that way those Matangs get out of range of the potential Greninja threat. And we do see Michael's unique deck-building archetype coming into play here with that Miraidon hitting the field and the Rotom V. Kind of a nice way to end the turn. Not something we see too often in any sort of Lost Zone deck.
Yeah, taking a page from Charizard's book, right? That Rotom V can be very powerful, and every extra card helps. And then if you get Iono, well, then you get 6 fresh new cards anyways.
Ooh, kind of a tough choice here. It is Switchcart and the Cramorant. And Cramorant will be hitting the Lost Zone here. One of your better attackers in the early game, but Michael recognizing with a full bench and seeing the matchup, it may be difficult to get any value from this bird.
Indeed, and Zamazenta is a very sturdy Pokemon that Jeffrey started off with, so the fact that Michael is already bench locked, it's going to be rough to make real use out of it, so I'm pretty sure that's why it hit the Lost Zone.
Totally makes sense, and it will be the energy attachment to Miraidon and instant charge from the Rotom, finishing off the turn. An excellent start for Michael Diaz. We'll have to see how Jeffrey Falberg can respond. Does kick things off with the Arven, that powerful supporter card on these first turns of the game, especially in this deck where Technical Machine Evolution is going to be your ideal turn 1 play.
Exactly. Combined with Buddy Puffin, you get your double Metang. Now, however, this this is where we see the weakness of Body Body Puffin, right? You would rather be, or you would love to be able to bench double Beldum and Dialga, or one of each, right? That way you have the Dialga, the sturdy attacker, and make sure it survives the attack from the Miraidon. That would be pretty crucial, but unfortunately Body Body Puffin can't. So that's always the little drawback, right? Before we had Battle VIP Pass, which could search for everything, but only on turn 1. Now Body Body Puffin works the whole game, but it cannot search for those big pieces that you need in order to establish yourself.
We'll have to see how things develop from this point. Is Jeffrey able to get down a pair of those Dialga V Pokemon? This is a great start, though. Double Beldum has the Technical Machine Evolution. I have to imagine with 16 Metal Energy in this list, there is more than likely an Energy card in this hand, and sure enough, there are quite a few. And I think I notice a Dialga. No, that may be a Matang in this hand currently. Yeah. And I think there's an Ultra Ball, so we could see that being played to go find a Dialga out of the deck. Would have to discard a couple of Metal Energies, which is not too bad. You play a bunch of them, but you want a bunch of them in your deck so that you have higher odds from hitting on your future Metal Maker abilities.
Certainly, and that's why the deck also plays triple Super Rod. I've even seen quad Super Rod in these sort of decks. Very important to have. And yeah, I think we're going to see the Technical Machine Evolution for sure. It'll be interesting to see whether Jeffrey decides to evolve the Dialga and a Beldum or the double Beldum. I'd really like to protect that Dialga because the Miraidon's looking pretty threatening already.
Yeah, I agree as well, and it seems Jeffrey doesn't get to 3-0 without making some pretty good decisions at some point in the tournament.
Yep.
Surely practiced at this point, and sure enough, Origin Form Dialga V-Star is evolved from that Technical Machine Evolution. And I believe the last 2 cards in hand for Jeffrey is an Iono and a Matang. So he's got a pretty strong turn set up for the next one. But for now, we are on Michael's side of the field, playing that Hisuian Heavy Ball, viewing the prize cards, able to grab a Pokemon he finds there and basic Pokemon and put it into his hand. It will be that Iron Hands EX, something that could potentially come up later in the game to sneak in a couple prizes on a Matang. It is definitely easier to knock out a Matang than it is an Origin Form Dialga V-Star.
Oh, certainly. And I think a big upgrade that Lost Box decks got were the Prime Catcher, right? Now they're able to threaten something on the bench, along with using Colress on that same turn, so you're able to find the cards you need for Iron Hands and chase down that 2-prizer on the bench.
That Oranguru V, the spicy tech from Michael, does hit the Lost Zone here. It will be a switch card into another Comfey. We are ramping up this Lost Zone quite a bit, just a few more cards in there away from being able to utilize Mirage Gate and get off an attack. I have to wonder, though, how worth it is it to attack with Miraidon EX into a Zamazenta as a 1-prize Pokemon?
Probably not very worth it. It does take 5 energies for Dialga to get a return KO, possibly, but it is like you're trading a 2-prizer for 1-prizer, and there's the Prime Catcher that we were talking about, Chip.
There is a Prime Catcher, but it's accompanied by a couple of awkward cards. I don't think you mind losing the Lost Vacuum, but there were a pair of energy found from that Colress's experiment, and if you're drawing them into your hand or sending them to your Lost Zone, that means you don't have access to accelerating them from your deck with Mirage Gate.
And this is where we are seeing the liability, if you will, of Rotom. Rotom facilitated this huge hand, the 7 cards that lost on turn 2. However, with Michael's bench locked, there's no possibility to get that Iron Hands down and Prime Catcher, knock out the Matang, and start the price trade-off. So you get the benefit of the Rotom, and it comes at a cost.
And we do see Mirage Gate accelerating 2 energy of different types from the deck into play, and it will be attached to that Radiant Greninja, drawing 2 more cards now with concealed cards, using that Mirage Gate before the concealed cards. Pretty smart sequencing decision if you don't want to draw into your energy cards. And now a Water Energy being attached to Greninja. That will be the attacker this turn, it appears. What do you think of this line here from Michael Pablo?
I really like this. You are able to start the price trade-off, take down the Beldum, and then you're also able to set up the damage on that Dialga to put it in range of your own Miraidon. So very smart play, I would say. You can also put the 90 on the Matang and then threaten Sableye as well in the future for multiple prizes, but I really like this line to just get that Dialga in range of your main attacker.
Michael Diaz strikes first, taking out a Beldum, taking a prize card, and also setting up the Dialga. Jeffrey Falberg kicks things off with the Metal Maker ability on Metang, allowing him to view the top 4 cards of the deck, and he can attach any metal energy he finds there to his Pokemon however he likes, but he was unable to find a metal energy at all.
Indeed, no energy, so Zamazenta will not be able to take a knockout on the Radiant Greninja in exchange, which would have been Jeffrey's ideal plan here. Unfortunate, and using the first Metal Maker and whiffing means the next one will be better, but there is no next one because the Beldum got KO'd.
Another great reason for why Michael decided to target that Pokemon down. We do see the Mew EX hit the field. That restart ability extremely strong in a deck like this where you have very little draw power otherwise, and also that genome hacking can definitely get in there at some point. Metal Maker can attach those energy cards to any of your Pokemon, and it will be an Iono played as the supporter for turn for Jeffrey.
Indeed, Iono to disrupt Michael's huge hand. I think he might have had like 10 cards there at least. And as you mentioned, Chip, that Mew EX, a very valuable Pokemon in this deck, not only to help you draw cards and replenish your hand, but also as a surprise attacker, which can create some very nice situations. But right now, Jeffrey against the ropes, it feels.
Yeah, Jeffrey not able to get off an attack this turn after that whiff on the Metal Maker. What would be the ideal response from him in this position, Pablo? What would you like to see him accomplish as this turn is wrapping up?
I definitely think threatening the Zamazenta and trying to make sure that that's where Michael's focus is, or where it remains, because if the Metang follows suit the Beldum this upcoming turn with a Prime Catcher play or something along those lines, the deck cannot function without Metang, yeah? Unless there's already an established Dialga with a lot of energy, you need to pressure that down. But at this point, it's all about either you pressure the energies or the energy facilitator, which in this case, that's the Metang.
We will see Michael kick off his turn. Has that Town Store as his stadium in this list, allowing him to search his deck for a Pokemon Tool card and adding it to the hand. It will be a Forest Sealstone being grabbed. I actually believe he found another one as well off of the Iono. He's going to be left with a few less options. He had a massive hand before the Iono from Jeffrey on his turn. Now he's going to be trying to find some of those pieces again. I think potentially that Prime Catcher could be one of them.
Yeah, Prime Catcher could be a great option to take down the Dialga. He does need a Mirage Gate, though, to go with that. So if he finds Mirage Gate or Prime Catcher, which he does, then he can use the Forest Seal Stone to fetch the other missing piece.
Yep, very smart sequencing. No reason to use the Forest Seal Stone before drawing a couple cards. See what you can find first. And that Forest Seal Stone will be utilized on this Rotom, flipping that V-Star marker, Star Alchemy, searching for any one card. One thing as well Michael wants to double check is the energy cards in the deck. You would hate to grab a Mirage Gate and not quite have enough energy to pull it off, and I actually only see one basic Lightning in the deck right now, and I think that's what Michael is realizing and thinking through.
Indeed, missing that Supra to replenish his deck of resources, which is very, very key. We see one already in the Lost Zone, and that's also something that Lost Box decks always need to manage very carefully, right? How many energies do you have left? How many energies are available? How many energies can you afford to Lost Zone? How many Supras can you afford to Lost Zone? There's just so much going on for them.
Michael needing more than just one card here, has to find Colress's Experiment from the Forest Sealstone. Not a bad choice. Able to look at the top 5, add 3 to the hand, and send 2 to the Lost Zone. There is a Super Rod. Does he find a Mirage Gate? And I don't see it right there, Pablo.
No Mirage Gate and a lot of really crucial cards. I think the Mew is an easy choice, but the other 4 cards are quite tough. And now,
wow.
Michael actually decides to keep the Mew EX.
And that Iron Hands goes to the Lost Zone. Something that could be really nice later in the game to potentially pick up a couple of prize cards. But Michael recognizing maybe, hey, I'm on odd prizes already. My opponent does have that Mew EX in play. That's a pretty soft target. Maybe thinking Iron Hands would not have a high chance to come into play.
Now there's still a chance to find a Mirage Gate here, and thanks to the switching effect of Prime Catcher, Michael would still be able to pull off this play. But this flower selecting is going to be big.
There's a Super Rod, and the next one is a Boss's Orders. No Mirage Gate found for Michael. Is this going to be a whiffed attack on this turn, Pablo?
I think so, Chip. And the advantage that Michael got from that first turn is now essentially nullified by this whiff, and this will give Jeffrey a little bit more time to stabilize. Hopefully, he's able to find some actual energies from Metal Maker and try to establish his board a lot better.
I do think Michael prized his rescue board. That's a new card from this most recent expansion that he is playing in his list. I'm pretty sure it is prized. He did not grab it from the town store, and that would be a way he could get one more card dig potentially.
Yep.
Obviously, after drawing the Forest Sealstone, he wouldn't have used town store just for another one. He would have probably grabbed the rescue board if it was available.
Indeed, rescue board, a very crucial card and a very nice addition for this deck, for Giratina as well. I think we're going to see rescue board as a mainstay, even with future cards that are released.
And it will be a pass from Michael. This is Jeffrey's opportunity to hop right back into the game, and it is a very interesting top deck. The Prime Catcher was found for Jeffrey. Does that open up any potential lines here based on the board composition at this point?
I mean, if you get the absolute luckiest Metal Maker with 4 energies and then you attach them all to your Dialga, then you can take down the opponent's threats.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
There's a chance. Higher than 0%, absolutely. But how likely that is? Oof.
Well, we're going to see the Metal Maker right now. 4 cards from the top. How many energy cards is Jeffrey able to find? Let's see it. There is just 1 energy.
Which, for now, you equal the price trade, right? Or the price deficit, rather. You can get an attachment from hand to your Dialga V or V-Star. So slow but steady seems to be working right now for Jeffrey. That whiff from Michael is a pretty big one.
You know what we could have seen from Jeffrey that would have been pretty interesting is if Metal Maker had hit 2 energy, he could have put the 2 energy on the Mew EX. Mew EX could bring up that Greninja with the Prime Catcher Jeffrey has in hand, and copying Moonlight Shuriken, that is an underrated use of Mew EX in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a pretty viable play that Jeffrey has, and he can pull it off at any point unless Michael immediately benches the Manaphy next turn after this Confe goes down. I would not be very surprised if that happens, and as you're about to point out,
Michael doesn't even play Manaphy.
Oh yeah, I would not be surprised at all if that play actually ends up happening.
It will be Jeffrey attacking here. Retaliate, only dealing 100 damage since there was no knockout last turn, but still more than enough to deal with the Comfey, which is only 70 HP, and also, I believe, weak to metal, so it goes down pretty easy here. Arven will be played first. Jeffrey not playing a supporter card yet this turn, able to find any item card and any Pokemon tool card and add them to the hand. Jeffrey does still have an open bench space to work with. Would you like to see him try to establish another Metang?
I would love to, as the one thing, I think the one piece of information that Jeffrey has right now from Michael is that he doesn't have a Mirage Gate, right? And if he ends up investing another Mirage Gate just to take down the Beldum, that's a big pressure on Michael's resources, and you have a limited amount of Mirage Gate, so it's not always easy to just do Greninja over and over. I would love to see an extra Beldum here because, as we see, the double Metang is very crucial for this deck to actually function properly.
And that's exactly what Jeffrey grabs from the Nest Ball, letting him grab any basic Pokemon out of the deck, placing it directly onto the bench, hoping to allow that to become a Metang on the next turn. Does have an Ultra Ball in hand. We could have maybe seen him play it, thin his hand down, draw a card or two with the restart, but maybe there's a couple cards there that he wants to hold on to. And also, he doesn't need anything this turn, right? Could have evolved the other Origin form Dialga V into a V-Star, but perhaps wants to save that for a Metang on the next turn.
Indeed, get that double Metang rolling to make sure that you get to that Star Chronos, which is so crucial, especially against the single brother. What
a Colress here. 5 cards from the top, and 4 of them are energy cards. He finally finds the Mirage Gate he was looking for, but at what cost?
He also finds the energies that the Mirage Gate wants to find. Wow, that's a big blow to Michael's hopes in this game, I think. That early advantage he built is slowly but surely getting whittled down here, Chip.
Yeah, it does have the Super Odd, so I think there is a bunch of water energy still in the deck. We could see that in order to activate the Mirage Gate, but as Michael, I mean, what attacker do you want to go with? What do you want to try to do to Jeffrey's board here?
So, unfortunately, I think you have to deal with this Amazenta. This Amazenta, whatever you do, it's already powered up. So if you pressure something on the bench, that Amazenta can take down Raiden, can take down the Raikou. And there's even a Vitality Band to potentially take down an Iron Hands EX. So that's is something that Michael needs to deal with, needs to invest their resources to do so. And that probably means it has to be done with a 2-price Pokemon, and that's where Jeffrey should be able to take over the game, as long as he hits enough energies off of Metal Maker.
It will be Raikou V being played on to the bench. Perhaps one of the best ways for Michael to potentially deal with this Zamazenta. A full board from both players, so the maximum 220 damage being dealt by the Lightning Rondo.
Yep, a pretty solid amount, as we see a Mirage Gate for a single energy. That's not what you want to see as a Lost Box player. I mean, sometimes that's enough, right? That's all you need to get a return KO, to take over a game, but those resources, they're running now dangerously low for Michael.
And we are going to see the Prime Catcher be utilized. This is interesting. It will yield 2 prizes for Michael, but like you mentioned, Jeffrey has the response already set up with the Zamazenta.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this because usually you want to ask your opponent to have cards, right? At this point, Jeffrey could have a 0-card hand, could draw and just declare an attack, and he didn't need anything to respond to this Raikou. So I'm sure Michael is aware of the price trade-off, but there's already a Boss's Orders in the Lost Zone. The Prime Catcher has been used, so you're not going to have a lot of room to target things on the bench. And that Zamazenta is going to be a nuisance for Michael over and over.
Michael does take a solid lead here, 3 prizes to 5, but the board position and the resources remaining, most importantly as well, feel like they may be leaning towards Jeffrey's favor. He will play this Ultra Ball, discarding 2 cards from the hand in order to find any Pokemon from the deck, adding it to the hand. It will be Origin Form Dialga V-Star, surely coming into play in just a moment, evolving that Origin Form Dialga V on the bench. And we could possibly see a Star Chronos this turn as well.
We honestly could, yeah. That would also be a very viable play here for Jeffrey. And this is perfect because now both Metangs can dedicate their efforts to their Dialga because you're not worried about having an attacker powered up. So if you get the 5 energies, cool. If you don't, that's also fine. You're already ready to get the KO with Zamazenta on this Raikou.
Yeah, and something else that's kind of interesting with the wording of the Zamazenta is something Jeffrey could do would be to Star Chronos with the Dialga V-Star, and then he could retreat or Prime Catcher into the Zamazenta, and it would still do 220 damage with Retaliate because a knockout was still taken on Michael's last turn. Even though it was 2 turns ago, it was still Michael's last turn. That would be a crazy interaction I would love to see.
Yep, that would be a very unique interaction that we used to have something of the sort with Medicham. That was a more common extra turn mechanic, but now Dialga V-Star paired with Metang has me believing, Chip. It really does.
Well, I think it is going to be just short, though, not the 5th energy being found from a Metal Maker, so no hopes of Star Chronos this turn, but still a solid position for Jeffrey, able to take this 2-prize KO with the Zamazenta using Retaliate, and that Dialga V-Star is extremely safe on the bench. I don't think Michael has any way to deal with it. There's nothing like a Roaring Moon EX in his list.
He does play 2 Boss's Orders, so he could soften it up. But as you mentioned, I think the Oranguru might have been, but it's living right here in the Lost Zone now. So I don't think there's any way to deal with. You know, the Dialga V-Star is guaranteed to get at least 2 prizes, right? You go Star Chronos, take a prize, and then you get to attack again. And as long as Jeffrey can combine that with a Boss's Orders or a Prime Catcher over the course of 2 turns, I'm liking the odds of Jeffrey taking this one down.
It's definitely leaning in his favor. Michael in the tank a little bit, still has plenty of plays available. You never really feel like you're out of a game with Lost Box, and especially with the powerful Sableye coming into play. Lost Mine more than activated at this point. Spreading some damage counters, setting up for a win in a couple of turns, potentially. We'll see what Michael's able to piece together. In this position, I mean, do you just ignore the 2 attackers, maybe go after a Metang, plus start to set up the Mew EX to be closed out, your target to close out the game?
I mean, with the Boss's Orders left, I think that has to be your plan, right? Because you know Jeffrey can potentially win in 2 turns, so you need to win in 2 turns as well. You need to take down that Metang and then hope you can piece the Miraidon KO into the Mew. That's how you win over the course of 2 turns, but that Dialga V-Star, 1 energy away.
Yep.
You don't even need Metang anymore.
And I don't think that Michael's going to get another turn because Jeffrey is going to take it away. Prime Catcher targeting this Miraidon EX. Actually, will be the Rotom either way. Works just fine. And Star Chronos flipping the V-Star marker, taking a 2-prize KO. Jeffrey gets another turn, and Metal Blast would close the game out. Michael sees the writing on the wall, concedes, and we're going to game 2.
There is a universe chip where Lightning Pokemon used to have metal resistance, so maybe that was like, you know what? I don't even want to check.
Just in case, I'm going to bring up the Rotom.
I don't even want to check. I'm just going to go after the Pokemon that even with resistance I can take down. And Jeffrey, I hope he's also making Dialga levers in the chat right now.
Yeah, what a moment. An extremely strong showing in our game number 1 from Jeffrey's Dialga V-Star. I know Skarzig backstage is so amped right now.
Sure.
If there's anyone who's a Dialga lever, it is definitely Adam Skarzig Watson.
Now, yeah, I mean, very exciting showcase. I think after a pretty bland start off of Jeffrey, he was able to stabilize and take down the game. And that's where these sort of Lost Box decks, I think, Michael has a very unique take on them, but they can't cover everything, right? Michael focusing on the lightning type attackers, has the Oranguru V-Tech as well, but how do you deal with a high HP Pokemon? That's always Lost Box's issue.
Yes, and we've seen many players resort to the Roaring Moon EX, but Michael opting for something a little more streamlined, going with these metal energies. And it was an excellent start for Michael Diaz. Got off to the early lead with this Greninja play, but whiffed the attack on the following turn, and that really was the turning point in this game.
Indeed, if he had been able to either knock out the Metang as well to slow down everything or take down that Dialga V-Star so it was no longer a threat, definitely that misbeat. That was the one turn Michael needed to potentially close out the game at the end.
And this was a huge one as well. Colress finding 4 energy cards, making things pretty awkward. It did lead to a 1 energy Mirage Gate just a couple of steps later, and it was eventually Jeffrey coming away with the victory.
So we're about to see the prize cards. Sableye being prized can be problematic. 2 water energies as well.
Yeah.
And that bailed them for Jeffrey, along with the technical machine evolution, but should be, overall, I think they're fine-ish because Michael can access the prizes.
Yeah, Michael does have that 1 copy of Hisuian Heavy Ball. A pair of water energy being prized may be a little awkward if one gets sent to the Lost Zone too early, potentially. He is playing 4 copies in this list, so Radiant Greninja can still be an early game threat. Michael did lose game 1 and chose to go chose to go first here once again in game number 2. Pablo, what do you think about that call?
I think Jeffrey's Pokemon have so much HP that I would have preferred Michael to choose to go second on the off chance that you're able to let them have an underwhelming turn and you're able to take over the game that way, right? Get that first attack 110 into the Mew instead of Jeffrey retreating and then finding Zamazenta again and using the TM Evo. I do feel like there's value in choosing to go second as well as first. Yeah, both are good. This way you threaten the Greninja. If they whiff the TM Evo, you can potentially target down 2 Beldums with your Moonlight Shuriken. So there's merit to both. I usually prefer to go second because there's so many decks that benefit from going second at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think Dialga is one of those as well, wanting to utilize Arven, wanting to find that TM evolution, technical machine evolution, to get a few Pokemon into play. Michael is absolutely churning through the deck here. I think recognizing the time situation, you know, if he wants to come away with 3 match points in this round, he's going to have to win 2 games. And if he's going to want to win 2 games, it'll have to come pretty quickly.
Oh, certainly, and I'm not sure 23 minutes is enough to go through something like that, but we're going to see the Rotom again, which obviously benefits. Your hand helps you out a lot, but I'm not sure the bench space ended up being worth it last time around, as we see a slightly different attempt to play the game this time.
Interesting, the Iron Hands EX being benched aggressively. Michael did go aggressive as well with 3 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1, so with a Colress and a couple Comfeys, it'll be pretty reasonable to get to 7 next turn. We could see a turn 2 amp you very much, and one of the things that's difficult for Iron Hands in these Lost Box decks is that in order to utilize it in 1 turn, it often takes 2 Mirage Gates, a lot of resources to power up very quickly. Maybe why Michael's chosen to bench it early here.
Yeah, that early bench, early attachment saves you that resource, right, which we've been talking about. It's so, so crucial to make sure that every Mirage Gate counts. and saving one on your Iron Hands, even though you're telling your opponent, hey, look, I'm about to attack with Iron Hands, that's completely fine as well.
Jeffrey, with a pretty solid start, has that Mew EX in the active spot. Probably the best starter, I would say, with this deck. It's got free retreat. You probably wanted him play in every matchup anyway, so now you can pivot into whatever Pokemon you potentially want. Is going to have to be digging here a little bit, I think, in order to find the Arven or Technical Machine Evolution. It will be an Ultra Ball thinning the hand out. He's gotten a pretty solid setup so far, a pair of Beldum, Origin Form Dialga V, and now this Ultra Ball is able to find the Zamazenta, just one card left in the hand.
Now, I love this Zamazenta because Zamazenta is protected from Iron Hands, from the Ampu very much, right? Even if it doesn't have energy to activate its ability, it's 10 HP away from getting KO'd. And one thing to point out, now that my... Ooh, very nice hit.
Yeah, well, this could be a big hit. Real quick, Pablo, this Pokegear 3.0... Jeffrey would love to find an Arven here.
Yep.
7 cards from the top. Can he do it? There's a research. Iono. I don't think I see an Arven, however.
I think you'll be okay with the Iono to conserve the Prime Catcher, take away the extra cards that Michael got off of the Rotom, but definitely Arven would have been the better choice now. One issue that I think Michael is now facing down is that with the 2 water energies priced and the third one being here, there's no possibility for Greninja to take down the Beldums. That is not possible.
Not a play that will be available to Michael. If he wants to take a pair of prize cards next turn, it'll have to be through Iron Hands EX, taking out a Beldum with a Prime Catcher, which is quite a lot to hit on the second turn of the game.
It is a big ask, because you also need the Colress, you need at least one switching card, the Energy Attachment, the Mirage Gate. Now, there are 2 copies of Force Seal Stone to help you accomplish that next turn, but yeah, it's a big ask, as you mentioned.
We will see Iono played from Jeffrey, both players shuffling their hands, then placing them on the bottom of their decks. They each will draw 1 card for each of their remaining prizes. Since it's turn 1 here, 6 cards apiece for the players. We'll see if Jeffrey can find a good combo here. I think I see that Technical Machine Evolution and an Energy card. What a draw from the Iono!
Yeah, Jeffrey doesn't know it, but this protects him from a possible Greninja play now. I don't like this, however. I don't like using the Mew. I would have really preferred to see the Zamazenta be the one to use the TM Evo, so that, because now Michael, even if he whiffs the Prime Catcher KO on a Metang, he can still get to prizes with Arm... Oh, no, he can't. He can't get to prizes with
Yeah,
Arm
with the bench being locked up, even something like a Scrap Shot from the Rotom can't quite get there.
Yeah.
There's only 3 tools in Michael's list, so that's 160 damage, just a little short.
I'm too used to Iron Crown getting that extra damage for Iron. I feel like Iron Hands without Iron Crown just feels way less threatening.
Yeah, you're damage capped at 160, can't quite get through some of these Pokemon like the Mew EX. So maybe it ends up being a good call then. If you know that this Mew is safe, it gives you more flexibility next turn, right?
If you do get hit by the Arm Press, though, it sets up Mew perfectly for Sableye to get 3 prizes, 100 HP on the Metang, 20 left on the Mew. So I feel like the Zamazenta is 100% safe.
Sure.
Right?
Is Jeffrey perhaps worried about it getting stuck like it did in the last game? He lost a turn. It didn't end up mattering.
With double Metang in play already?
Yeah,
I
true.
feel like
good point.
And the extra Beldum as well. I think that's the key, right? Because now you don't, even if one Metang goes down, you have the potential 2 others as backup. We haven't seen too many energies. The deck must be filled with energies. So I feel like it's an acceptable risk to take.
As it stands, it will be Mew using that Technical Machine Evolution, getting a few Metang in play, and Michael starts things off right away with a Colress, getting a few more cards into the hand, and a tough call off the Flower selecting. It will be Super Odd sent to the Lost Zone. Every Lost Zone player's nightmare is finding Super Odd on Flower selecting. It feels like that is always one of the toughest cards to have to make a decision around.
Indeed, especially with already 2 energies in the Lost Zone. Having that decision as well, one of those being Lightning Energy. You do play 4, but there's only so many energies you can Lost Zone before your deck starts like running out of resources.
And switch into this other Comfey with the rescue board. It will be another Super Rod found, and Boss's Orders has to be sent to the Lost Zone thanks to it.
Now, interesting that Michael has chosen to not lead with the Colress, I don't believe.
He did. He did.
Oh,
he started
did
it off
lead.
with the
Oh,
Colress.
sorry,
Yeah,
my
Colress
bad.
has already
He did
been
lead.
used. Yep, led off with it and uses Radiant Greninja here and actually finds the Forest Seal Stone. This opens up tons of options for Michael. He's got a massive hand. What can he piece together?
The Prime Catcher, 2-prize knockout. I think that's the only way to initiate the price trade-off effectively, right?
Yeah.
And you're using a 2-prizer to take 2 prizes, so that can be worth it. But seems like he's not 100% sure. Maybe he forgot something about the prizes. Maybe he was trying to do the Greninja play, but because he knows time is of the essence, he didn't price check as thoroughly.
Sure.
And that could be influencing his decision right now.
It looks like Mirage Gate will be the choice from that Forest Seal Stone. It is activated now with 7 cards in the Lost Zone. Michael does have a lot of cards in the hand. Looks like only 1 energy, so should have a decent shot to pull some energies out of the deck. And
the 3rd Super Art in a row off of your 3 Flower Selects. What are the chances of that
I think
happening?
at this point, though, it's not too bad because the other card was a Rangaroo, right? We're totally fine to throw
This
the
was
Rangaroo.
the least difficult Flower Select, but still finding all 3 back to back in the same turn.
He would have liked to have found a more useful resource right now,
Yeah.
right? Super Rod isn't really doing too much for him. And he already had one if he wants to utilize it. And it will be Super Rod being played, just putting back 2 Lightning Energy. And now Mirage Gate finding 2 energy of different types from the deck and putting them into play.
Now this is an issue because in order to arm press, you need to dedicate another Mirage Gate. So things just really not working out for Michael. Using Ampere very much for 120 on the Mew EX is like the least exciting thing you can do with your deck at this point.
And is that what we're seeing? Yeah, no Prime Catcher being played. Ampu very much for 120 into the Mew EX. Does not feel extremely strong. Earlier in this turn, when Michael used concealed cards, he had a Lightning Energy and a Water Energy in his hand, and he chose to discard the Water Energy. Or sorry, chose to discard the Lightning Energy.
Yeah.
If he had kept the Lightning, discarded the Water, we would have been able to see an arm press right now. And that also would have allowed him to put an energy that's on this Iron Hands onto something else in play.
Indeed. I think that's pretty much confirmation that Michael just wasn't aware of the energies. And I think even if time is of the essence, the #1 thing to check for Lost Box decks is the energy availability so that you don't try to make a play that is just not available because of that. Or you need to make a difficult decision with flower selecting, but you need to be aware of all your resources, especially the energy at all times.
All 3 Matang in play here for Jeffrey Falberg. This first Metal Maker does find just 1 energy card.
Yep.
For Jeffrey, what would you like to see accomplished on this turn? How does he best navigate the board state in this position?
I think if you're Jeffrey, you have a big opportunity to build a really big advantage. Either Dialga V-Star taking down this Iron Hands, or quite simply, or finding a ghosting effect and being able to copy Greninja with Mew to take down Tuconfei. Either way works. That would give Michael 3 prizes in exchange, but the Dialga play is also pretty fine here.
And we are seeing that loaded up. Second Metal Maker utilized, 2 energy found. This will be the last one. How many energy does Jeffrey see? 4 cards from the top. Let's see how many Metal Energy. 1, 2, 3. Huge hit there from the Metal Maker. And now you've got tons of options. Where do these energies go?
All 3 on Zamazenta, which can't quite do a lot of damage this turn, so I'm surprised by that choice. Maybe there's no Dialga V-Star available at this point in time, so we might also see a non-KO from Jeffrey.
Let's see what the restart brings. 1 single card found from it.
Couldn't see what it was, though.
He's got some great hand blocking technology right now, and if Jeffrey's not able to attack, I mean, you can't leave this Mew in the active. It just goes down for 3 prizes to amp you very much. We're just going to see him swing for 180 damage with Origin Form Dialga V.
Apparently so. So very underwhelming turns for both players. This does give Michael an opening to potentially chase down that Mew EX to take those 3 prizes in exchange as a follow-up. So Jeffrey had the triple Metang, but no real worth it attacker to take advantage of that.
Honestly, for Jeffrey, though, this doesn't seem too bad. You know this Dialga is safe. Yep. Michael has a full bench, and there is no way for him to reach for a 1-hit KO. So with this damage set up on the Iron Hands, you can actually find yourself going Star Chronos into that Iron Hands, and then maybe Prime Catcher, Boss's Orders, one of those things to take a 4-prize swing by targeting down Rotom V.
Certainly, yeah. Like, feeling pretty safe with this current board. I wonder if this is a very unorthodox Lost Box deck, right? So I think it would be running through my mind, do they play a Professor Turo to potentially pick that Rotom up, open that up? Now that the Colress has been played, that's not possible. However, I would feel very confident, but not 100% safe just quite yet before that Colress was played.
Now, Michael, after the Colress being played, does send a Nest Ball and a switch to the Lost Zone. I think looking for the Prime Catcher, that is the piece that would be really nice to hit here, allowing him to take 3 prize cards and giving him a shot to try to navigate this end game.
Yeah, attacking into the Dialga feels very underwhelming, but that is what we are going to see. Not even the energy for Arm Press to leave the Dialga V-Star in range of another. Thank you very much.
And Jeffrey does find the Arven, can grab Ultra Ball and a Vitality Band. Now just 1 energy card away from being able to attack with Star Chronos and potentially take 2 turns. We'll see if he can find the pieces to pull it all together. Vitality Band maybe would have been nice last turn. It does allow you to Star Chronos and Iron Hands EX. Didn't quite find all of those pieces and will have to settle. And I think it's going to come down to a restart here. Also has the Metal Makers needing to find just 1 more energy.
Yeah, with 3 Metal Makers, there's no doubt in my mind, as I am a Dialga Lever.
Oh, you didn't just curse him like this.
There is no way. There is no
my
way.
Goodness. Well, for your sake, buddy, I really hope there's no way that he whiffs.
You'll see, Chip. I tend to be right in these situations. The odds favor me.
The odds definitely favor you. We'll see 4 cards found. No sweat at all. Yeah, right away.
Yeah.
Metal Energy being attached to this active Dialga. And Star Chronos is online.
Star Chronos to take down the Iron Hands, take the first 2 prizes, and then this is always worth it for Jeffrey. No matter what happens afterwards, your 2-prize Pokemon took 3 prizes. Therefore, you're always ahead in this situation. Your opponent's also biggest threat to potentially take 3 prizes back on the Mew EX is now in the discard pile. You follow this up with an Iono. It's not as impactful because Michael just hasn't gotten onto the board yet, but you take away their huge hand. I think Jeffrey's sitting really nicely here because that Samazenta is a great follow-up to whatever Michael throws at him.
A very solid position here. Has a bunch of energy and a Super Rod in the hand. Isn't even going to use Metal Maker at all. What do you think about that call?
I also like it because so far he hasn't seen too much, or rather there isn't anything else you really want to power up, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the Mew EX, but it could get taken down by a Sableye or something, so then you'd just be losing extra resources.
Right, because Metal Maker sends those cards to the bottom of your deck.
Yep.
If you know that there's a couple cards on the bottom of your deck you don't want to draw, but there might be some supporters mixed into the top part of your deck, you want to increase your chances to draw those in future turns.
Yeah, and that's what makes Metal Maker so good. Every Metal Maker you use after the first one or in consecutive opportunities, it just makes your odds better and better to hit the energies. It does put potentially crucial cards at the bottom, but then you can shuffle your deck, or it's a calculated risk you always take.
Michael plays the Nest Ball and kind of takes a seat back. I wonder if he was looking for Sableye here and realized it's not available.
Yep, I think once again with the time issues and the heavy ball being in the Lost Zone, Michael just never took the opportunity to really thoroughly check his prize cards, and with 2 waters gone, could not do the Greninja play. With Sableye gone, cannot even take advantage of this potential situation to take down the Mew EX, which I'm not even sure that's enough to really put himself back into this game.
And sure, Raikou here can get this knockout. Take the 2 prizes on the Origin Form Dialga V-Star, but Jeffrey has the response on field with that Zamazenta ready to go. Retaliate will easily deal with the Raikou V, and then Jeffrey would just be 1 prize away from closing things out.
It always feels great as a Dialga player that usually you just have game on board, right? Or you have so many Metangs that your chances of whiffing are so incredibly low that you can play without a hand and still potentially close out the game.
Mirage Gate will be utilized. 2 energy cards being pulled from the deck will power up this Raikou V. There could be a chance for Michael to come back in this game if he had some sort of disruption, I think. If you could Roxanne your opponent or Iono them to just one single card. And we do see Roxanne be played as a one-of pretty consistently in Lost Zone decks. Michael doesn't have access to one, though, has not chosen to play one in his list.
Yeah, no way to disrupt Jeffrey's hand. And, I mean, Jeffrey also has the possibility to return KO this Raikou with the Mew itself. If he does that, yeah, then he has 2 threats established on the board and 1 prize remaining. So the Zamazenta sitting pretty on the bench. I feel like this is almost checkmate for Jeffrey.
Yeah, and Jeffrey has so many resources available, has not used the Prime Catcher, has his boss's orders, has Arven as well, like plenty of ways to find the closeout to finish off the game. That Greninja is waiting there as an easy way for Mew to take a couple prizes or 1 prize, even if that's all that's necessary.
Yeah, surprised by this decision, though. You would always want to promote the free retreating Mew and then decide what to do. Unless there's a Snorlax in front, there's very little drawback to do that, but it's not a big deal. I think Jeffrey has this almost pretty much locked, replenishing his deck with energies, make sure that he has another attacker potentially available. I think has a Dialga that he can also bench, so we could see another Dialga V-Star as well become a threat. So yeah, if you're Jeffrey, you're feeling pretty confident about this game at this point. And at worst, you tie, right? Because there's definitely no time to play a 3rd game in case you lost.
Right. And even if Michael found a way to come back, I wonder if Michael would be able to find that path in 5 minutes plus 3 turns. It would probably be pretty close, to be honest, based on what resources he's already utilized.
Yeah, not a lot of resources left in terms of Mirage Gates, Super Rods, and energies already in the Lost Zone. So not great. Yeah, not a great chance to make a comeback here. And with no hand disruption, the opponent's just finding everything they want each turn, pretty much.
1 energy found from Metal Maker number 1. 2 more Metal Makers lined up, ready to go. Here it is, Matang utilized once again. I almost feel like it's 2006, seeing a Matang in play, drawing 4 cards from the top. A little different than the good old Delta draw from the Delta Metagross, but it makes me feel a little nostalgic.
And a little old.
Well, I wasn't playing back then, but, I've played some 06 decks, so I've got the, I've been, it maybe makes you feel a little old.
Yeah, it was more towards me. I was definitely playing, not even League Cup, City Championships, using that Metagross Delta draw.
We do see 4 energy now on that Origin Form Dialga V. Jeffrey has not attached for turn either, so he could make the Mew EX a threat potentially. In these positions, as a player, you're so far ahead. What are the things you want to go through and check off to make sure you don't put yourself in a position where you lose a game that otherwise you had locked up?
Right. The one big thing that could happen is Jeffrey all of a sudden gets too many energy onto the board, and Michael is able to get a Metang up into the active, and it gets stuck, right? You end up not having a way to retreat. You whiff the Metal Makers because there's only like 1 or 2 energy left, and all of a sudden you lose a turn. And that turn allows Michael to spread damage with Sableye, which Jeffrey doesn't necessarily know that it's prized. Michael might have grabbed the Sableye at this point, right? In case you had an intuition or an inkling that it was prized. So I think that's the one big thing. Leaving enough energy remaining in your deck to make sure that no matter what Michael does, you're able to retreat and continue to attack, as you only need 1 prize card to close out this game.
Michael, with just a few cards after the Iono, does use the Town Store. No tools remaining in the deck, but it does shuffle the deck if there were some cards on the bottom that he wants to potentially draw into from a Comfey or a Concealed Cards, potentially. I do think there was a Mirage Gate down there, so makes sense. Use that Town Store, even though there's no target. Looks like he has found Boss's Orders and a few energy cards. What play is there here for Michael, if any, Pablo?
Potentially, I generally can't see one chip. If there was Sableye available, it would be like, maybe you just try to trap the Metang and hope they don't have enough energies available somehow. Like, I would be counting my opponent's energies, assuming they play 16 to 18. You don't know 100% for sure. I really don't know what possible play Michael is working out right now to try and find a tie or win this game somehow.
Yeah, maybe if you hadn't used your V-Star power, you could hope to use Mew EX next turn if Jeffrey puts a Dialga V-Star in play, but Jeffrey just has the win on board, basically. There's really no path, I think, here for Michael. It will be the Desperation Boss pass, I think. Hope that Jeffrey doesn't have a way to move things. Maybe you can sneak away with a tie if time ticks down enough. But it's pretty unlikely here that Jeffrey wouldn't have a way to close things out. He still has Prime Catcher available as well.
Indeed, and with no Sableye available, it's like you do this, but you're not even applying pressure or getting closer to a knockout, and you even have less cards than your opponent in your deck. So even a deck out situation is just not possible. And with the Prime Catcher remaining, as you mentioned, it needs to be the last prize card for Jeffrey. Otherwise, it's game over.
And speaking of game over, Arvin is played, finding an item card and a Pokemon tool from the deck. Sure enough, Prime Catcher is one of the choices that will move the Metang from the active and bring up any of these Pokemon on the bench for Jeffrey to get the win. Just making sure he's got it locked up here, I think. You want to make sure. He could have closed it out just with the Dialga V, but why not go down swinging with the big guy? Origin Form Dialga V-Star will be able to take these last prize cards for Jeffrey.
There were exactly 2 energy left for Jeffrey. Not sure if that was intentional or not, but 2 energy just enough to potentially retrieve that Metang in case the Prime Catcher was available. And as we see, Jeffrey takes down this first streamed round here at Orlando Regionals.
Dialga V-Star out here doing big things, taking names, a pretty dominant showing as well for Dialga. How do you, I know you chose it as one of your cards as a caster pick this weekend. Why do you feel so confident in the archetype?
So that extra turn mechanic is so powerful. It doesn't require a lot of setup to really get going, and the fact that the Metang is a stage 1. If it was Metagross, I would not be a believer at all, but setting up stage 1s is pretty reasonable. Buddy Buddy Puffin has a lot of synergy with the deck. The Arvin combo combining Buddy Buddy Puffin along with the TM Evo, you play so many energies that you're bound to have one. So I feel like there's a lot going for the deck, and the fact that your only weakness really is that Radiant Charizard that is being played, but you can still start Chronos it. I really fancy everything about the deck.
In game number 1, things actually looked really strong for Michael Diaz. Got off to a quick start. Jeffrey was able to respond with the Zamazinta eventually, and Michael whiffed an attack for a turn. Also found a bunch of energy off this mid-game Colress, and things just felt a little awkward. He didn't quite have great answers to what Jeffrey was setting up. And Dialga V-Star, if anything, when you have enough time, Dialga's going to be the one coming out on top.
Yeah, that extra turn so crucial. And even though that Dialga first came down, that Zamazinta was also a very big threat. It's a Pokemon we've seen before in Lost Box decks, but finally it has its moment in a pure metal deck and really making a name for itself.
Star Chronos, one of the most powerful V-Star attacks in the game, stealing that extra turn. Able to be utilized, a 3-prize swing for Jeffrey after it KO'd a Comfey with the Metal Blast. And then Michael was able to respond, took out this Dialga, but already at this point in the game, it felt like it was too little too late.
Too little too late indeed. Lost Box decks need to apply that early pressure. That's where they shine. If you're not able to get ahead from your opponent, then closing out the game with your underwhelming attackers in terms of they're just